Well, I think, we got to stop picking winners and losers and have everything on the table, Alexander, and I think that's what Congressman Nunez is after. The problem that we have and what we face is agencies that are in the way, that have over-regulated, they have stymied a lot of exploration, and we only have one-third of the federal government. We've seen no help or support from the Senate side, and therefore what we need to do is get people involved to make our senators speak up. And I think the other thing that we have to look at is not just our energy, but our natural resources. It's a golden opportunity to utilize our vast natural resources, from agriculture to our forests, to our coal, to our natural gas, oil, uranium, you name it. We've got so many things here to be utilizing, and it's a great opportunity for us to have job production. And for every natural resource job we create, we get up to 19 service industry jobs associated with it in Arizona. It doesn't usually happen that way, but it's usually 4 to 6 times that. So if we really want to stimulate this country, you're on right track here, is trying to have an energy policy, a natural resources policy, and it has to be all the above.
Now, would you support drilling in ANWR, or are you more in favor of just shale drilling, vertical drilling, fracking? I know Canadian oil companies are going after sands and basically, taking all the oil that sits in the sand, and there's actually a stock that I've been watching that's doing this, is Canadian oil sands. But there's so many different options out there outside of just pure oil, which we are very rich in. A lot of people don't realize that, and it's actually seeping out off the coast of California. The environmentalists don't seem to understand that. But what would you support as a solution to it? Because I'm assuming from your position so far, you would like a free market approach, but what would be that free market approach?
Well, we have to have that free market approach in the fact that what we've got to do is look at all our resources and entertain them. There's a right way and a wrong way of going about it, and I think we have got the opportunity to set the standard properly and right, to involve people in the process, to get government streamlined, and to get some of the onerous details and regulations out of the way. And it's not just those; it's the constant delays that we see. When you're talking about 30 days, 90 days, 1 year in delay, those are all costs to production, and they delay things from going on, and they increase the cost. So those are all the things that we need to jump in on, Alexander, to make sure that we're doing that. And I think every little bit counts. There's sands, there's fracking, there's easy ways to get around and work this and do it right. And that way it includes everybody in the policy.
And I just want to get one thing out there. A lot of people are blaming the oil companies. They're blaming the gas stations and, invoking the accusation of price gouging. And that's a very serious accusation when you're talking about private enterprise, because we all frown upon things like that and just taking advantage of people. And the American person does not believe in that. Now, the oil companies are making pennies on the dollar, and so is the gas station. I believe gas stations are making 10 to 20 cents. Some are making a little bit more, depending on the location. If they're off the highway, they command a little bit more money, whatever. But the government in New York State is getting about 63, 65 cents on the gallon. They've done nothing to earn that. The federal government is getting an atrocious amount also, and I believe that gas tax is set to sunset unless it's approved for another, X amount of time. Would you support keeping the federal gas tax in place as it stands right now? Do you support keeping it in place and lowering it, keeping it in place and maybe a little bit higher to try to close, budget shortfalls and things like that? What's your position on that?
Well, I think that goes along with our road tax and our infrastructure building, and we've got some serious problems in there, Alexander. I think that the gasoline tax for the roads is 18.4 cents. And what we've seen a lot more miles per the gallon, and we've seen less and less revenue and more infrastructure needs. This needs to be overhauled. The biggest problem that we have to look at is we've built the problem. It's called OPEC, and we have got to have a policy that benefits America and Americans, the taxpayers. And that means that we have to have an all-the-above energy policy. And that's the true problem, is that you're being regulated by a monopoly known as OPEC.
Now, you were a practicing medical doctor before, throwing your head to the ring and, making the craziest decision of your life, arguably by, going to Congress. which actually I thought of too, so maybe I'm a little bit crazy as well. But you know about healthcare, you know about the side, the pressures of it, the burdens, the collection, which is obviously the biggest thing because people don't pay their doctor up front anymore like they used to. It used to be you go to a doctor and you would, if it's $200, you pay $200 up front. How the doctor gets paid, you move forward. But now there's a collections process, and Medicare, Medicaid, and other similar programs that are funded by government, state, or federal are really hampering these, private medical practices' ability to collect their money and be able to carry on their business, and it's really hurting them. Now, Obamacare. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm just nodding that I agreed.
Obamacare. There's been a lot said about it. The 11th District Court of Appeals has just said it's unconstitutional, which is a major win for Pam Bondi and other attorney generals that are fighting it, Ken Cuccinelli and others. What's your position on the repeal of Obamacare as it is today? Because the House moved to repeal it. Of course, it died in the Senate immediately. But now, there's other things that keep coming up, like Steve King and Michelle Bachmann found that there was $105 billion that couldn't be taken out regardless of what the Republicans were to do in this current session of Congress. So how do we move forward with getting rid of Obamacare, taking the teeth out of it, lessening the burden on the average everyday person and on the doctors that we go visit when we need to?
Well, the first thing is we want to continue to push, into the court system. And the easy solution is to get this administration to admit that let's take it to the grand court of the land and go to the Supreme Court. They're not going to because they don't have the votes there. But truly, from the legal side, it is constitutional. And I think when you look at what we've tried to do in the House, being 1/2 of 1/3 of the federal government, we've been trying to do our part to get things pushed through appropriately. The problem is that, once again, you don't have the Senate. You said it earlier, it died there in the Senate. And we don't have an administration that wants to play. In fact, we have an administration that likes to pick and choose the rules they want to enforce, and they constantly are playing above the court of law. That's a problem. But I think what we can do is slow the progress. And I think one golden opportunity we have is before we left for our August constituent month, we had a hearing in government oversight in which we brought the job creators in. And all of them said that this was going to be a major problem and that they were going to lose jobs, and we're seeing jobs report again today being dropped, with Bank of America dropping jobs. But they're going to drop jobs because they cannot afford what's coming in this regard. It's the bureaucracy, it's healthcare, it's the regulatory burdens. All of this is adding up. And we can't cut our way enough out of this economy or this budget without having job creation. And that's what we have to look at. And I think looking at the next months ahead of us this fall and next spring, jobs are going to be at a premium. And that may give us the opportunity to seize the moment.
Now, speaking of jobs, the president was just on a jobs bus tour, and former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney and current GOP presidential candidate labeled the president's recent bus tour as the magical misery tour. What are your thoughts on that statement? Do you think it's just typical rhetoric, or do you think there's some truth behind that kind of statement? Because even Maxine Waters and the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, are speaking out finally. They were reluctant because of his race, which is another thing I want to get to if we have a chance. But do you think that former Governor Mitt Romney's statements were justified?
Oh, I think you can see by the president's reception and some of the things he said. Like the comment Obama cares. And it got a light golf clap. You can see his reception because people are nervous because this administration has never come with a plan that can be scored by the CBO. We need to have the dialogue openly with the American people. That's what the House has initiated. And so this president has fooled everybody because he's put nothing forward. And so I think former Governor Romney's comments are well spoken. And I think that the fact that we've got a president that's off at Martha's Vineyards when we're seeing the problems that, frankly, he has to admit, he has to accept. And that's what the problem is. All of us have to take personal accountability and personal responsibility for the problems that exist today. And I keep seeing this president blaming somebody else, and he won't blame himself.